G'day and kia ora rugby fans. This is That Rugby Podcast, hosted by the Sports Booth. I'm your Kiwi half of this podcast, Luke, who enjoys a full trophy cabinet, running rugby, and whenever the Bledisloe comes around. With me is the Aussie mate, Hughesy, who loved Eddie Jones and now despises him, is used to being let down, and can't actually remember what it's like to see a Bledisloe win. Tune in for 30 minutes of no-nonsense rugby chat, a bit of Trans-Tasman banter, and maybe a few laughs, if you're lucky. Get yourself set and engaged as we kick off That Rugby Podcast. Six Nations is now 2 rounds in, and we have a lot to catch up on. Hughesy, both of our predictions looking a little bit wayward now. After, I mean, there's still a game tonight. We're recording this Sunday morning, Sunday evening for you. Mm-hmm. Ireland versus Italy play tonight. Our assumption is Ireland will do the job in Dublin. But let's kind of cover the first 2 rounds, look at kind of what we've seen. Obviously, I predicted Scotland to win. You predicted France to win, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. I believe I said that. I think I said Ireland was going to have a bit of a hangover because, they had a really great chance. They didn't quite make it. I thought France was going to come up with a bit more of a vengeance, and they didn't in round 1. Round 2, well, a different story.
Yeah, round 1. Let's start with round 1. Ireland versus France was obviously the big matchup because a lot of people thought, as a lot of Northern Hemisphere people said, it was the final that we never got but deserved or some shit like that. And I was like,
some pathetic crap like that.
And I was like, we got the final we deserved. It was a cracky game. Ireland running away with it against France, and I think it's really interesting. This French team, after 2 rounds, has shown me that maybe I underrated what value Dupont had on this team. Do you know what I mean? They just haven't looked the same. They haven't looked nearly as attacking, nearly as special. Gregory Aldrit has quite clearly been the standout player for them, and then he left with what looked like to be a pretty bad injury. Look, they've still got their French flair. They managed to pull it off against Scotland in round 2, but they just haven't looked like the same team, the French, since the Pontless French, should I say.
Yeah, and it could be even argued that the French didn't really pull it off against the Scottish. So obviously controversy in overtime in that game. So to break down the scenario, Scotland on France's goal line, Scotland have the ball, dive over, no try called on the field. On the field call was held up or couldn't see that there was a try. Now, that I think was the correct call by Nick Berry. I don't think there's anything wrong with that call. I think he couldn't see it. It was very difficult to see. And he referred it to the TMO. However, looking at the TMO's angles, at least in what I saw was there was the ball and there was no way it couldn't have been touching the ground. The level that it was at, with the level the camera was at, I would say with 100% certainty that ball was on the ground if I was the TMO. However, the TMO said they couldn't make that determination, which I thought was a bit soft. I thought the TMO could have made that decision, and they said they couldn't see it clearly touching the ground, so the on-field decision had to be held up. So the procedure was followed correctly. I think their judgment was wrong. And I think that is still okay. I think if you're following procedure correctly, that's fine. And we can have differences in judgment. I am a little bit critical there because you can be critical of performance without attacking someone, and I think I am critical that that is a try that they should have picked up. I guess being a pretty neutral observer, it's a bit easier to be impartial here. To me, it did look like it had been grounded. And I'm the one that's picked France to win the Six Nations as well. So if I've got a dog in any court, it's a dog in any race, or whatever the phrase is, it would be for France to win. But for me, it looked like the ball had been grounded. I thought that was relatively clear. The TMO disagreed. Result goes France's way.
Yeah, look, I agree and disagree. So I agree with what you said, Nick Berry. You can't. There's no possible way he could see if that ball's grounded or not. And the only way you should be able to order try is if you can guarantee that the ball's touched a line. So he sends it up. I agree with your thought, hey, it's a judgment call, but I also think the TMO has made the right call, because you cannot I don't think, as much as me and you probably are saying that we could 100%, I think it's a 99.9999% that it's touching the ground. There is that you can't see the line, you can't see the ball on the line, and you need definitive evidence to overturn it. Now, this is where my issue comes in, is the process. I don't mind about that, because he had even said it looks like a try. And I think he was fairly confident it was a try, but he has to overturn the decision, and that's where I don't like it. Like, why we have to have if it looks like a try, it's probably a try. So why are we having to overturn a decision that, to me, like, Nick Berry has made the right judgment call, but why can't you just send it up and tell me try, no try? Why, as soon as he's made his decision, does it? I hate that. I'd send it up, try, no try. You tell me, you've got all the camera angles. I think if that had happened, he goes, that's a try. And I think that's where, again, all of this controversy flows around, and we've discussed it with TMOs before, is World Rugby haven't put them in the right position. Look, that wasn't the only rule in that game that I think World Rugby probably needs to take a serious look at. I don't know if you, because you've just seen the highlights, obviously different time zones, a bit harder for you to watch, but I don't know if you witnessed the 5-minute kicking duel that came between Ramos and Finn Russell.
No.
Okay, so the rules are currently stated that if you kick a ball, you don't have to be put on side anymore if the attacking team starts running. So say I kick a ball to you, you're in your own 22, anyone between that isn't offside if you start running forward. I think they've got to go 5 metres or a couple of metres. So as soon as you start attacking them, they're now put on side. So what we had happening was Ramos kicking the ball, not chasing, Finn Russell catching the ball, not moving, and they would just stand there and look at each other. Finn Russell would take his time, sit there for about 10 seconds, then boot a ball back to Ramos, do the exact same thing. He didn't chase, and it became this kicking tennis, and it was like the commentators are bewildered, but they're like, oh, why wouldn't you want to counter-attack? And I'm like, these are the dumbest commentators I've heard, because why would you counter-attack to put people back on side? Like, it's still like that. They're like, oh, you should want to get back to counter-attack. I'm like, well, no, because why would you put that effort to get back for them just to decide to kick? It was brainless commentary, and it was brainless rugby, and it was like, that rule needs to be changed. I think you still need to be put on side by a chaser, and that solves everything, because at the moment, with the way it is, why counter-attack? There is no reason to counter-attack. Like, if there's players that are able just to stand in the middle and they can form a line pretty much, like, there's not going to be a lot of space there to counter-attack, and it just made the second half was one of the weirdest second halves of rugby you will ever watch in rugby. If you ever wanted to watch a second half of rugby like that, go and watch that.
Northern Hemisphere rugby.
But I think I honestly believe, like, South Africa will be sitting there watching that. It's one of those things that Scotland were doing the right thing, taking the speed out of the game, taking the French out of the game. If they had been able to capitalise on their chances, they would have won that game. So, look, let's move on from Scotland, because they're currently 1-1. They are. I think they're going to look back at that game, and I know even with the controversy, and go, we blew it, and that could be our Six Nations chance blown as well. So, look, there's that. England are currently 2-0, which, I mean, I know they've played Italy and Wales, who we aren't expecting to do great things, and they've only just won those games, but they're still 2-0.
Look, I did say that if England could have a bit of a run this year, it seems like they've had a bit of buy-in to Borthwick's messaging. But another curious rule in this game, with the rule about rushing a kicker. So, and in fact, I had a bit of a deep dive into this one, actually, because I thought it was so interesting. So, scenario is this: England were there to kick the goal after scoring a try. And the kicker, I forget who it was, he took a step to his left, and then the Welsh players immediately rushed up. But the England player, he stepped to his left and paused. The Welsh players were a bit confused, and the first one of them actually ran by the ball, but then the second one just said, we're in for a penny, in for a pound, hit the ball over. And the referee allowed it. It was completely legal, and it is completely legal. And the reason it's completely legal is because of New Zealand. So what the laws of rugby state that you can runner to kicker attempting a goal, except for a penalty, I believe, with as soon as the kicker makes a move to start his run up to the ball, to start his kick of the ball. New Zealand in 2020 or 2021 requested a clarification to the rule. I think it was 2020, requested a clarification to the rule where when does that movement towards the ball start? What if he takes another movement? What if he takes a step to the side or back and then pause it? Pretty much this exact scenario. And the laws were clarified that any movement counts as a start up to the run of the ball, because otherwise it puts undue pressure on the referee to determine when the kicker is going to start his run up to the ball, and it adds an element of judgment that doesn't need to be in the game. It adds complications to the game for fans, referees, players, commentators, etc. So the Welsh did exactly the right thing, and the English player, well, he'll learn for next time that any movement when you're in that position counts as your run up. And I mean, it ended up not costing them the game, but it very well could have with how tight this game was.
Yeah, totally. George Ford, I think it was in England, now have
I think so as well.
A history with goal kicks. Owen Farrell clocked out and won at the World Cup, and now George Ford with this. So, yeah, look, funnily enough, it was a New Zealander refereeing. So if anyone was going to get it right, it was the ones that have probably...
That's exactly right.
Yeah, probably been looking into it. But, yeah, England 2-0, Wales 0-2, but -3 points differential from those two games.
I know, it's really, you got to feel sorry for the Welsh here, especially as someone of Welsh heritage like I am. You know, that last, the desperate comeback that almost was against Scotland, and then to just fall short against the hated English. It's a rough old time for them, and it's not going to get any easier because they're up against Ireland this week coming. Then they face France, and then they get their reprieve in the last week against Italy. So they're going to go. They've got two arguably tougher opponents in the coming weeks.
Well, you've got to give a lot of credit to Gats as well, because this is a Welsh team with a lot of no names, as disrespectful as that might be. A lot of no names in the world of rugby. You know, there's no Halfpenny, there's no Liam Williams anymore, and they've come out and they have performed at a level that we expect from a Gatland Wales, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah, that is what we expect, to make it a tight tussle and with potential to go on and win these games. Yes, they've lost these two, but a pretty young squad, if I'm correct, is going to be a great learning curve. And if Gat stays there 100%. For another 2, 3, 4 years, I think this Welsh team, from where they were last year, they're moving in such a right direction. That absolutely. Yeah, I think they're heading the right way at least. But yeah, so look, Ireland looking like the favourites now to take it out.
Yeah.
They win against Italy now. They'll be 2-0 with England. Obviously, the big win against France. Scotland losing to France kind of makes the path a bit easier for the Irish, as they will only need to now just take out the English and the Scottish, Scottish, I know they host at home. I don't know if they play England away, but...
The Ireland play England at Twickenham.
So that one will be the big one for them. But again, England haven't shown me enough yet to say.
No, exactly. Yeah, they're 2-0, but they should be 2-0. So they're meeting expectations at the moment.
Correct. So that is the Six Nations, kind of where we're at the moment. Finn Russell's looking like the best player in the world at the moment, with the way he's playing. A couple other standouts, as I said already, Gregory Alderit's been very good. For England, Tommy Freeman's had a couple of good games from there. Ethan Roots, former New Zealand Māori, was man of the match in the first game for the English. So yeah, as some people have pointed out, there's a very New Zealand feel to this Six Nations with James Lowe, Gibson Park, Ethan Roots, a couple others in there. But in the comments, let us know, who do you think is going to win the Six Nations from here? Can Ireland hold on? Can Ireland do the Grand Slam? Could England pull off a stunning Grand Slam that was never expected, but they deliver on Borthwick? Thank you for joining us on the Sports Booth, That Rugby podcast. I have been Luke. That has been Husey. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
See ya. Super Rugby is coming up very shortly, under 2 weeks away now until kickoff. And there are a few teams out there on both sides of the Tasman that bear watching. For me, the team that I have got my eye on this year for a multitude of reasons, and I think Super Rugby will have its eye on for a multitude of reasons, is the Melbourne Rebels, a team laden with talent who's getting some good results now, but the financial floor has fallen out beneath them. They've been put into administration players' contracts will be honoured for this year, but beyond that, there is no certainty. They find themselves in quite a large amount of financial debt, and it doesn't look like a lifeline is going to be thrown to them. What could change their fortunes is if they have a successful year on the field. That could be really something where they could find an investor, or where Rugby Australia says, okay, you're proving yourselves to be one of our franchises that we need to have. So we'll find some money for you. Personally, I think they should find the money for the Melbourne Rebels, because Melbourne is such a breeding ground for talent, and it is a big sports market. I think the Rebels are being punished for Rugby Australia dropping the ball before now, and they're the fall team for it. So I've got my eye on the Melbourne Rebels. I think they're going to have a good year on the field, unless off the field issues impact that. However, I still think that I reckon they'll have a good on the field year.
Yeah, look, they've made some fantastic signings, but as you say, it's very much a do or die year for the Rebels, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, if they can deliver some sort of result, make the finals, then yeah, you could make an argument there. If you can't, then yeah. But I think it's going to take something special to save them from where they are. If Rugby Australia and people weren't already talking about culling a Super Rugby team, which I wouldn't have been surprised if they weren't thinking about it, this has given them an excuse to kind of deliver on it.
Have you heard about what one of the proposals has been that was turned down?
Yes, and I like the idea of the proposal. Run us through it, Hizzy.
So the proposal would be a merger of Moana Pacifica and the Melbourne Rebels. I'm not necessarily opposed to this. It is a consolidation, because I think if you're going to have a Moana Pacifica side, you need to have one that's regularly playing games in those Pacific Islands. I don't think the team's there yet, unlike the Fiji and Dura. And I think if it's a way to get the Rebels to survive, and they would become known as the Rebels Pacifica, I think that would be pretty good. I think that eases some of the financial burden. And yeah, rather than just cutting a team, merging teams is a better look overall. I think it is a positive option and way out. I'd rather that than a team just being flat out dropped.
100%. And what I make of it is, I've spoken on this, Moana Pacifica lack an identity in New Zealand, because we just don't have enough people and enough support as it is to add this other team here. So as you said, if it was a Melbourne-based Pacific team, where we saw with the Dura, who are based out of Queensland as well, play some games out of Queensland, but I think eventually you're going to end up playing all their games in Fiji with the way the world's working, with the way the rugby's working over there, with the way they're performing. I think they end up playing a lot of their games over there. I think that this could work. Melbourne-based and play 2 or 3 games a year, home games a year in Samoa, Tonga, anywhere else over there. But what was big on this, and I'm surprised, again, it hasn't got more traction, and I think New Zealand Rugby probably will be more interested in the traction now. 65% of rugby participants in Melbourne are Pacific of origin. So it's not like there's not the audience there for it. There's the identity there. And it's the same thing. The Rebels don't have an identity at the moment. They've just brought in, Talanau Tupou. Massive. Imagine if you put that name. Their captain's Rob Leota. Again, Pacifica background, Pacifica players.
Rob Valentini, the newly crowned John Eales medalist, is from Melbourne.
Exactly. Again, so it makes a lot of sense in my mind, and I think it gets some traction with the idea of World Rugby goes, we'll help you to add a US team, or we do add a Japanese-based team. It starts to make a lot more sense. How it all works, again, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, again, Rebels do or die season for them. For, I guess, your Tars, my friend, as well, Darren Coleman in a sticky situation. There's rumours flying around. He's got 4 games to prove himself. Hasn't had a couple of good pre-season showings. Just got thumped by the Reds.
Hard to put much stock in pre-season, but I am, as a Waratahs fan, concerned about this. It's really wild that, he had a great opening season, but then hasn't been able to produce much beyond that. And you look at his resume, he's a winning coach. So, yeah, I feel like a little bit with the Waratahs, sometimes the talent in the forwards isn't there and hasn't been prioritised as much. And you can see that with the signing of or the re-signing of Andrew Kellaway. It's like where our backs, we've got a decent amount of depth there. Where we need help really is in the forwards, and I haven't seen too much positive signing news in that direction, which is what concerns me really. Like that's where the Waratahs have been let down before. You've lost Hooper. You've got a fantastic gun prop there in Angus Bell. You've got Parecki there as well, who's fantastic. Jed Holloway. You've got some good pieces there, but I feel like it's the depth more than anything that is challenging for the Waratahs. So I am concerned with this season for the Waratahs. I think they will finish below the Rebels based on just these first few trial games that we've seen. I think that it'll be, and I think the Rebels probably have a little bit more hunger this season as well.
Yeah, I agree. I will get into our predictions soon about standings. I still think this Waratahs team is better than the performances they put out. And again, pre-season, you can learn a lot more. The points don't matter in pre-season. So,
yeah.
As my Hurricane showed by getting thumped by the Highlanders, points don't matter in pre-season. But look, it's going to be an interesting year. Let's run through kind of our predictions, and we'll kind of stick out with a couple of players to watch, see who we see could light up the competition this year. I will go first. So in first, I believe will be the Chiefs. I think they go back to back. We're not deciding winners yet. We're just deciding the table. So the 1 to 12 at the end of the season. I think the Chiefs are in a really good position. I think the Chiefs look fantastic. So I've gone them 1. I've then gone the Blues 2.
Yeah.
I've then gone the Hurricanes 3.
Mm-hmm.
I've then gone the Drura 4.
Wow. Okay.
I've gone Rebels 5.
Yeah.
Crusaders 6.
That is a hefty step down for the Crusaders.
I just don't think without Razor, without Richie Mo'unga, I don't think they're going to be as. I think they'll still make the finals, and I think they could go on a run in the finals. I think this is going to be a down year for them. 7th, I've got the Reds. No, sorry, 7th, I've got the Brumbies.
Yeah.
8th, I've got the Western Force. 9th, I've got the Reds. 10th, I've got the Tars. 11th, I've got the Highlanders. 12th, I've got Moana Pacifica.
Yeah. Okay. That's a. I've just typed out your list so I can see it here. Okay. So Chiefs, Blues, Hurricanes, Dura are your top 4. Rebels, Crusaders, Brumbies 4. So the rest of the top 8, and then Reds, Tars, Highlanders, Moana Pacifica. Yeah. It's a good list. It's a good list. I think I have some notes though. Chiefs, Blues, and Hurricanes, I agree with you. I think will be the top 3. Dura at 4 for me is a little ambitious. I don't know if they can crack the top 4, and I think that you have to remember as well that there are certain teams that play each other more often than others as well, and I think that favors the Australian teams somewhat in terms of the end of the season standing. So I'm putting the Brumbies at 4. Putting the Brumbies at 4, then I'm putting the Crusaders, then I'm putting the Dura, then I'm putting the Rebels. So that's my 7, and then I would probably put the Reds over the Force. Then I would have the Force, then the Tars, then the Highlanders, then Moana Pacifica. So to run you through my list, it would be Chiefs 1, Blues 2, Hurricanes 3 in alignment so far. Brumbies 4, Crusaders 5, Dura 6, Rebels 7, Reds 8, Force 9, Tars 10, Highlanders 11, Moana Pacifica 12.
Yeah, look, interesting. Very interesting. And I'm not, again, too far away from where you are. I think we've got a very similar top 8. Look, there's 2 teams that I jump out at me that go, they could do, like we had the Chiefs, I think, last year ranked pretty low, both of us, like 6th, 7th. I think Highlanders and Waratahs are the 2 that jump out at me on both of our lists, where if the Waratahs get on a good run early, they could beat those Australian rugby teams. Yeah. And as you said, that makes half of the point. And so that's probably why I could interchange them with the Brumbies. I don't see the Brumbies doing as well this year. Again, they've got their own financial issues that they're battling with. Yeah. I think they've lost Nick White. They've lost a couple of key playmakers there. I think the Force could jump up higher. I've got them making the 8, but I think with the signings they've made, there's potential
Force
there.
Could be, yeah, Force could definitely do some damage. See, if their signings come through for them, they could definitely be a force to be reckoned with.
And then, as we said, the Rebels, as much as we both want to see them succeed, they could struggle just off the field, could just take over what they're trying to do on the field. So, look, and again, Moana Pacifica, it's not, I think they still win some games this year. I can't see them improving enough again to go higher than 12th or 11th. Like, they're going to be a bottom dweller yet again. And again, this will start to open up those questions. Is Rebels Pacifica the right way to go? A couple of players I just want to keep our eyes on, my eyes on, your eyes on. David McKenzie, we've both named the Chiefs to win it. I think, again, he had a great year last year, was our MVP.
Yeah.
I imagine he's going to be pushing the same boat this year. Maxi Jorgensen is another one. I know you'll have your eyes closely on him.
Yeah.
He's recently come out and said he wants to re-sign with Rugby Australia, stay in rugby, which is fantastic news for the Wallabies. Can he take a step up and go through? Another Aussie who has looked fantastic in the trials, Hunter Paisami, who kind of fell away towards Eddie Jones' reign in the Wallabies in the green and gold. He'll be looking to have a big year, is looking very good. And the last one is Peter Lakai, Artie Savia 2.0. is for the Hurricanes. Watch out for him. If he gets a good showing for the Canes, he will do a lot of damage.
I guess for me, definitely your Maxi J is the player I've got my eye on this year for the Waratahs. I think whoever the Brumbies 10 is going to be really interesting. Is Noah going to reclaim his 10 spot, or is it going to be Jack Deprasini? I think that's going to be a really interesting way to see how Larkham plays that. And then for me, I think the Reds are the most interesting team this year because it's the first year without Brad Thorne. Les Kiz has come in. There's still a lot of talent up there in Queensland, and I think they may be flying under the radar a bit. So I know I'm primarily Australian based on my views there, but I am Australian, so.
Makes it. Two former All Blacks signed to the Reds as well in the front row with Jeffrey Toomunga-Allen and Alex Hodgman. So will be interesting to see how they kick on. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to take out Super Rugby this year, finish on the table. Do you reckon our predictions are right? Obviously they are. It's just what one of us is right. But for now, thank you for joining us on That Rugby Podcast. Has been the Sports Booth. We will talk to you later. Goodbye.
Peace.
Could a Club Rugby World Cup work? That is the question on our mind. Hughesy, the Crusaders have just gone overseas. They've done a pre-season tour playing Munster and Bristol Bears. The Chiefs and the Blues have headed over to Japan, played a couple of teams over there, have seen really good results with crowd numbers, and I think the results themselves have been really good. The Crusaders, first of all, played Munster in front of 40,000 fans in Ireland. Which is huge, a massive game. Again, we struggle to get 40,000 for a Super Rugby game, even maybe a Super Rugby final. So that's a massive attendance for a pre-season game with not the full names on show. Then you've got them playing Bristol just this weekend gone, and again Munster beating the Crusaders as well. And this is during a Six Nations period where they're missing their players as well. Then you've got Bristol hosting the Crusaders again. Six Nations period, English players missing, also an English game on, but 18,000 turned out and a capacity of 27,000 in the stadium. So there is definitely some attraction to cross code. Same with the Japanese. I think the teams in the games were very successful over there. Don't quite know what the crowd numbers were in those games, but it's all looking really good for club rugby as a whole.
Well, the Rebels also toured Japan in 2023. In sort of the international period. So again, wasn't a full force Melbourne Rebels team, but positively received as well from everything that I've seen. I think it is a really great initiative. I think it is a good way to spread fandom of Super Rugby. If you can get Japanese media money involved in Super Rugby, that's all to the better. So I think that's you need to get more money flowing into Super Rugby, and I think you need to get fans interested in Super Rugby again, or more interested in Super Rugby, and you've got to find ways to generate that interest. And these sort of international clashes are great ways to get people interested.
It feels like the golden ticket to me is, okay, first of all, what rugby needs to do is sort out its rugby calendar and go, this is what we're going to do, because there's an opportunity for it. But in a Champions League like Asia Pacific Rugby, Super Rugby against the Japanese top team as a European Champions Cup type tournament, I think is the next step for Super Rugby and Global Rugby to be doing that in those midweek games and stuff like that, having that set up. Then I think we can start to discuss a Club Rugby World Cup, a Club World Cup. I don't know how it works. I don't know the feasibility. I know it's been discussed before, but I think from the results that I've seen of just these two games, I think if a Munster team travelled here, I think more people would go out. It's those one-off affairs, those moments. It's the same like if you brought a South African Super Rugby team to tour New Zealand now, I think it would pop off just because people want to go and see those games that they haven't seen for 4 years. Again, Super Rugby is that constant product, and you get it it's like a English Premier League game. Again, they sell out a lot more, but again, you'll have empty seats every so often. And then if you're in an FA Cup quarter final, or if it's a Champions League game with a big team coming in, all of a sudden people are there. If you've got a Cristiano Ronaldo coming, there's all of a sudden people are in the stands and are interested. So I think there's definitely potential for it, and I see rugby moving in this direction.
You need to give fans an opportunity to attend games where their team are playing in games with weight and importance, like something different from just a regular season game, So say like an FA Cup or like a Champions Cup style thing, say you had a group stage, your team would host a game there that is of importance. They need to win that game to advance to the next stage type thing. So I think, the fans will show up more for games of importance than just a regular season game. Like we went to the Brumbies and Waratahs opening game last year because it was hyped up a lot by Eddie Jones. Like they put a lot of importance into that game of, we want to really get great numbers down here to the new opening stadium, new season, new Wallabies coach, yada, yada, yada. They really talked up and made it an important game. And it was a cracking game as well. So you just need to add weight to it. It can't just be expecting fans to just show up to just another game.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like the weight here didn't come from the importance of the game. It's a preseason fixture with not big stars. The weight came from the fact that these two teams haven't played ever before or haven't played for a very long time. It's something different. It's a sprinkle of that. Like, again, I think this would happen. I just think the rugby calendar's got to be fixed. That's the big thing in my mind.
And I think as well, I think this would probably lend some weight to one of our proposed fixes for Super Rugby, which is to divide it into Australian, New Zealand conferences specifically for during the regular season, and then your postseason is where you get those then cross Tasman matchups, and then you could even have maybe during the season, you have a tournament that runs that there is those cross Tasman games, so you are more likely than like in New Zealand rugby. You said before, not many people really go out when it's a New Zealand team versus Australia team, right? But it's a relatively common affair. If you make those rarer, people will go to them more because they are, rarer. You're less likely to see it. It's less available. You're restricting the supply, and it's thus inflating the demand.
Totally, and it's a big thing for me is looking at it like I've got, as a Hurricanes fan now, a game circled on my calendar, and that's the Brumbies game. And that's purely come from the finals matchups that we've had. It hasn't come from, even our regular seasons ones have been good, but it's been the past few years we've seemed to match each other in the finals every so often. And I just think, like what we pitched is, hey, you have your conference games where you play everyone twice in your conference. That's 8 games there. You have 2 Super Rugby rounds, one in Australia, one in New Zealand, where you play off, and then you can have a final series from there. Again, it's a shortened season and TV monies and stuff like that. But again, if you can do it like that, or even if you make it a 14-week season or something like that, again, I look back and I go, Super 12 was you just played everyone once. It's an 11-week season. So, if you play everyone twice here, that's 8 games, and you have those 2 Super rounds, that's 10 weeks. Maybe you chuck in 1 extra week of a international crossover game where you host or they host. On the calendar, you get to 12 games in a round or 11 games in a round in a season, and then you go finals. It makes a lot more sense to me, and it's bang and done. But again, we're not the head honchos, unfortunately.
What you can't do is what they can't do is keep going down the same path they've been going down because it's not working. That's why the Melbourne Rebels are in administration. It's why other Super Rugby teams are in financial difficulties. It's not working. Something needs to change. And it's better to have something different than to cull teams. It's better to try something else.
I totally agree. And I look at it and I go, the NPC, which is, our provincial competition for rugby, below Super Rugby, the Wellington Lions have just moved their home from Westpac Stadium out to North or Jerry Collins Stadium because they just aren't getting the attendance and their cost to host a game at Westpac Stadium for only 1,000 odd people when it's a 30,000 seat. It doesn't make any sense. And that's, again, it's a big change because history is there, but it's one of those ones that's a necessary change. Like, we need to understand what is, and this is what I would love to know, and I would hope that Super Rugby have this information. What's our target audience? What's our target market? What are the people we're going after? And then from there, how do we work on growing that? And again, I think the growth comes from an Asian Pacific competition, which is, again, during that competition, I think you put in a midweek. And again, it might not have the same importance, but it's that even if it's not as important on your schedule, like you're not like, oh man, we want to win this game. You're seeing something new. It's a different thing every year. If you've made it, if you've qualified for it. And I just like that idea. And then that can build to a Club World Cup. But if World Rugby can sort out their calendar, I think that would be the start. And then you could easily build off that. But I think we've also got too many old heads in there. And they'll just chuck a Club Rugby World Cup somewhere in the middle of the season and say, teams now have to fit this in as well. And it'll make the money. It'll probably work quite well. But I don't think for the longevity of our sport, it's the right move.
100%.
What are your thoughts on a Club Rugby World Cup? What are your thoughts on, an Asia Pacific? What are your thoughts on growing Super Rugby, as we've discussed on this one? For now, I've been Luke from That Rugby Podcast. That has been Husey. We are the Sports Booth. We will catch you next time. See you later.
Peace.